Hello and welcome to Homeschool History. If you were to visit the Louvre Museum in Paris, you might find yourself in a room surrounded by massive, colourful, exciting paintings by amazing artists. And yet, the biggest crowd would be gathered around one small, mostly brown picture of a smiling woman who wasn't even famous when she was painted. This is the Mona Lisa by the Italian Renaissance artist Leonardo da Vinci. It is perhaps the most famous artwork ever made. To find out why, this week we're travelling back to 15th century Italy to learn all about the extraordinarily talented but very easily distracted Leonardo da Vinci.
Da Vinci?
No, not Da Vinci. Da Vinci. In fact, Da Vinci wasn't his last name, because Da Vinci just means from Vinci, the town in Tuscany where Leonardo was born in 1452. Calling him Da Vinci would be like calling me Tunbridge Wells. So let's call him Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo wasn't from a particularly fancy family. He was the son of a lawyer called Ser Piero and his girlfriend Caterina. Ser Piero dumped Caterina to marry someone posher, but his new wife died very young, and so did his second wife. In fact, Ser Piero married 4 times, meaning Leonardo had loads of half-brothers and sisters. And for a while, he also lived with his strict grandparents and his uncle. From an early age, Leonardo was interested in combining art and science. There's a story that when he was little, he wanted to draw a dragon. So he brought loads of insects, lizards, and bats into the house to use them as reference. Clever, but a bit of a nightmare to clean up afterwards.
Leonardo!
Even though he was a bit messy, his family could see he was a mega talented artist, and when he was a teenager, they sent him to Florence to be the apprentice to the sculptor and painter Andrea del Verrocchio. Good news for Leonardo, but also good news for the family. They could finally get rid of all those bats and lizards. Leonardo was a brilliant apprentice, and by his mid-20s he was an independent master painter in the Painters Guild. In those days, artists wouldn't just sell their paintings to customers, they would take commissions from posh people called patrons, who would make specific requests in return for cash. And when he was 30, Leonardo managed to get a very fancy patron indeed, the Duke of Milan.
Milan, darling, Milan.
And he wasn't just a painter either. Leonardo had kept up his interest in science, so by the time he moved to Milan, he was able to offer his services as a military engineer and architect, as well as a painter and sculptor. Talk about a bargain bundle discount. Now you'd think that doing loads of different jobs for the most powerful man in Milan would have kept Leonardo pretty busy. But one thing you need to know about Leonardo is that he was always getting distracted. Ooh, text message. Oops, sorry, I got distracted. Yes, Leonardo da Vinci was one of those people who like to start new projects without actually finishing the last one. In school, he would have been one of those kids staring out the window or doodling in a book or busy inventing helicopters, you know the sort. Whilst working for the Duke of Milan, Leonardo started jotting down ideas and sketches in a set of private notebooks. Now famously, he wrote his letters backwards in a style called mirror writing because he was left-handed. He didn't publish these notebooks when he was alive, so many people didn't know what he'd come up with, but later on they were discovered to contain extraordinary inventions. In the 1480s, he sketched out designs for an armoured car and a machine gun. And even a flying machine inspired by his study of birds and how they fly. These designs were so ahead of their time and the materials needed wouldn't be available until the modern day, but a lot of the designs would have worked. Incredible. Even if nobody in Renaissance times could build his futuristic inventions, people were still super excited to work with Leonardo. He was one of the most sought-after artists of his age, along with his 2 rivals called Raphael and Michelangelo. Hang on, they sound familiar. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are named after a bunch of bickering Renaissance artists. Michelangelo, the real one, not the turtle, got especially annoyed when Leonardo was asked to make a huge bronze horse for the Duke of Milan. Michelangelo had a big old huff. He claimed it could not be done. To be fair to Michelangelo, the bronze horse did not get done. But that was for 2 reasons. One, Milan went to war, so they needed all the bronze to be making cannons. And 2, Leonardo very rarely finished anything. However, he did manage to finish one of his masterpieces called The Last Supper, showing Jesus Christ and his disciples. It was a huge success for him. And when he finished this, people went, wow, that's amazing. I'd love you to paint me.
Wow.
Problem was, when you hired Leonardo, well, he was a total nightmare. He kept getting sidetracked by other things that excited him, whether that was studying human anatomy or animal bodies to see how they worked, or making designs for early helicopters based on the twirly rotation of sycamore seeds falling from trees. To get an idea of how fascinated Leonardo was with science and anatomy, Google one of his most famous sketches called Vitruvian Man.
Whoa!
In 1496, Leonardo got properly distracted this time by maths, which was of course no help whatsoever to his customers who were still waiting for their portraits to be done. An influential patron at the time called Isabella d'Este was desperate for Leonardo to paint her, and he got as far as doing a sketch, but he never did the actual painting. Good thing they didn't have online reviews back in those days, because Leonardo would have got a lot of 1 stars.
Oh.
In 1499, Leonardo had to leave Milan because it had been conquered by the French. But in 1502, he got a job as a military engineer for Cesare Borgia, a very powerful leader who was also the son of the Pope. Now, this was a bit odd because Leonardo was a vegetarian, an animal lover, and a man of peace. He would have been on TikTok wearing a flower crown and eating falafel. So why would a peace lover work for a famous soldier who was busy fighting wars? Well, Leonardo was excited to make the first ever street map based on a bird's eye view, which is when you see it from top down, which of course is how modern maps work. However, things got a bit scary with Cesare Borgia. He was quite a scary character. So Leonardo quit that job and instead applied to build a bridge for the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire in what is now Turkey. Sadly, the Sultan didn't fancy hiring him. Perhaps he heard that Leonardo never finished his jobs, and I guess half a bridge isn't very useful. Basically, it's just a very expensive diving board. Leonardo was still in high demand though, and in 1506 he was called back to Milan, which was now under French rule, to be the official painter and engineer to King Louis XII of France.
Bonjour.
Leonardo started work on creating a big, fancy statue covered in horses and heroic figures. It was called the Trivulzio Monument. And did he finish it? Of course he didn't. Oh, Leonardo, what are you like?
Oops.
Leonardo was really interesting because he was working for all these really fancy people, but he himself was not really that fancy. He wasn't posh or rich. He couldn't even write or read Latin very well. Most Renaissance thinkers liked to read other people's ideas in big fancy books, but Leonardo da Vinci was different. He liked to learn by doing experiments, by trying things himself. And he was still coming up with incredible ideas that would be impossible to build for centuries. He invented a diving suit and a submarine, but he kept them secret in case they were used to attack ships or hurt people. Yeah, bizarrely, he was a weapons designer who didn't love war. Hashtag peace and love, 3 hug emojis and a little smiley face. Leonardo even built a robot lion for the King of France. As gifts go, a robot lion definitely beats a pair of socks.
Oh, goody, just what I've always wanted.
In his personal life, Leonardo probably had boyfriends, but he never married or had children. In later life, he was given a nice house in Clou in France. He died there in 1519, aged 67. Despite working really hard, he'd only ever finished 15 paintings that we know of. Even the famous Mona Lisa, with her famous smile, still wasn't finished after 16 years of tinkering. The rarity of his artworks makes them extremely valuable today. In 2019, the Salvator Mundi sold for a world record $450 million, even though not all experts think that Leonardo even painted it. And the Mona Lisa, meanwhile, is probably worth billions. But she's not for sale. Besides the rarity, we also value Leonardo's artworks because there's something very special about how he used scientific techniques to represent beauty. His portraits feel very real because he studied how the muscles move in people's faces and hands. And even though he was easily distracted— oh, a squirrel! Sorry, I got distracted. Even though he was easily distracted, he was also a perfectionist, and he wanted everything to be just right. And I think that's a good thing, although his fancy clients might not have agreed with me. I mean, it's been 500 years, and Isabella d'Este is still waiting for that picture she ordered.
Oh.
Maybe order one online, Isabella? Sorry. And so that brings us to the end of Leonardo's life, so now it's time for the quiz. We have 5 questions. Are you ready?
Heroes in a half shell.
Okay, here we go. Question 1. In what country was Leonardo da Vinci born? Question 2. When Leonardo was young, what did he use as inspiration for drawing a dragon? Question 3. Which of Leonardo's paintings is the most famous? It's the one with the smile. Question 4. Name one of Leonardo's artistic rivals. And question 5. What was Leonardo's mechanical gift for the King of France? Okay, let's do the answers. The answer to question 1, Leonardo was born in Italy. The answer to question 2, he drew inspiration for his dragon from lizards, bats, and creepy crawlies. The answer to question 3, Leonardo's most famous painting is the Mona Lisa. The answer to question 4, Leonardo's artistic rivals were Michelangelo and Raphael. And the answer to question 5, what was Leonardo's mechanical gift? It was a robot lion. Thank you for listening, take care, and goodbye.